So thank you all for sticking around for a little discussion after this wonderful music. Let's thank these amazing musicians. So I wanted to start off by talking a little bit about, well, this is very personal. I've been listening to a podcast where it ends up always being about the interviewer, not about the person he's interviewing. So maybe this is about me. But I've been thinking a lot about a place. And it's this place that music that I love takes me. And the music that affects me brings me to this place. The best place for me to describe it is, I guess one way would be a flow state, a place of total engagement. To me, it's a spiritual place, and it's the place where I'm most fully aware of my life. I think that some would call this place God, but we don't need to use that word if we don't want to, but we can. And I get to this place with lots of different kinds of music. Like, Beethoven can get me to this place, Bach can get me to this kind of place, Evan Parker can get me to this place, George Lewis can get me to this place. So the thing that most gets me there is the act of improvisation itself. And it's the most transporting thing in my life, improvising and getting into this spiritual place. I think I wanted to share that, and I wanted to ask you your thoughts on the spiritual place of improvisation.
Were you asking?
It could be anyone who wants the answer. If anyone relates to this, please don't leave me alone.
Would you just take to leave you alone for a while? Are these like things?
Yeah, this is for you.
Oh wow! I'm expecting there would be a mic. There would be. Yeah, I know, but it's like it's. I don't know. I'm so wired. When you mentioned flow, and I just immediately thought of Fred Anderson, because that's exactly the term he would describe this kind of thing. So I don't know.
Can you name the person again?
Fred Anderson.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Like four microphones. It's like, do we need microphones or not?
For the audience.
They need to be able to hear you.
Okay. Maybe they do. I don't know.
Watching you play and listening to you play, perhaps it doesn't necessarily need to be spiritual. I've related this place of connection to the spiritual, but it doesn't need to be.
What do you call spiritual?
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Oh, okay. Well, how about if I don't call it spiritual? I've been calling it that in my brain. It's the place where I've been taking it. Mostly because I'm not a religious person. I never have been. So now all of a sudden it's like, oh, there's this thing, and I can go there. And I think if there were anything else that would take me there, I might try to do that too. But in the end, it's only music does that.
But perhaps it's all about being here and not there. That's what I think, really. Like, when I do a concert, I'm here, perhaps more than any other moment in my life. So, being here is a lot of work.
Yeah.
I would say something like this. Like, I'm taking into account all the conditions, like the people who are around, the sound, sometimes from outside, the other musicians, myself, the instrument, acoustic. It's a lot. And when I fail, it's my fault, of course, and it's because I'm not. I wanted to do something that was not convenient with the condition. I really think that.
I just want to say something. I won't answer your question. I'm not one of them. But maybe you need to know something that is important. In French, we have the word spirituality, but we don't use it the way Americans use it. So we understand what you say, and me being coming here quite often, I know. I mean, I feel exactly like you. to be honest. So, but still, it will not be that word. For us, anyway, it's very religious. I guess, but that's only a guess, because we don't, like, for the kind of experience you are trying to describe, we would use like a poetic state. Like what you call spirituality, for us it's poetry. Again, that's one way to put it. Maybe somebody will disagree or find another word than poetry. But anyway, with spiritual, we don't use that. And so if I understood you well, and here I'm asking Pierre-Antoine and Jean-Luc especially, it's more about the let it go. It's like for a moment, even if you're aware of what you're doing, because you said fully aware of my life as a listener as well, you know, even if you are aware of what you're doing and that it's decisions, conscious decisions you take to do this or that, to react or not react, to add or subtract or to shut up, all of that, all the parameters you're talking about. At the same time, it's a little bit like a double consciousness thing. At the same time, you let it go. It's not only rational. So that's why some people will talk about God or spirits or forces of the universe. Some others, like in France, could talk about the unconscious or the body, the fully integrated body. Anyway, there's many different ways to put it. But that's you know, just to give an element of transcultural dialogue.
I would say, to me, this is very simple, what we've been doing, not in a negative way. But this is very simple. It's just about, as Jean-Luc said, being here and acting, taking decisions, letting things go. It doesn't mean that it's easy. It's not because it's simple that it's easy. But I feel it's a very human thing to do, and really not having to deal with the result or how does it sound in the end. It's just about building something, adding pieces by pieces, and it's a game somehow, and it's very basic and simple to me. And yeah.
Is there something, because I feel like as an audience member, I was experiencing you entering this simple situation, and I feel like I entered that situation with you. So how is it that we communicate that, or what are we trying to communicate, or are we trying to communicate? A situation, a thing to the audience with this music?
Oh, this is a comic, some kind of a comic foil. I don't know. I was looking for a quote that I can't find. I was for some reason thinking of a book by Daniel Kahneman called Thinking Fast and Slow, which suggests that the human behavior involves two aspects of a brain, where one of them is a very fast reactive brain that was evolved probably out of, I don't know, some lower, you know, like it was to deal with the, you know, like they need to be more in common with other animals. They have to react quickly to things. And there's also another more analytic brain, and I'm wondering whether this is, I don't know, it's puzzling to think of things in terms of that, whether this is pushing, I mean, to what extent these two are involved. I think they are, but the relationship of these is interesting, and it's kind of pushed to limits in this kind of music, maybe, possibly.
Yeah.
You know, the Kahneman book's really interesting. Whether, I mean, you could hate the music we played, and the Daniel Kahneman book's really good. Seriously.
Well, this is my question, is maybe, yes, oftentimes with this music, it's, oh, I didn't like what it meant. I mean, I love what it sounded like, and I think, you know, people here did too. But there was two gentlemen that left within 5 minutes, and that often happens. But it's almost a strange thing where, with this improvised music, are we trying to communicate the sound, or are we trying to communicate something else? Or is it both?
I'm not even sure. When you say communication, I'm not even sure what, I mean, I would almost think that it's for me, and this maybe is a horrible self-identification thing here, but that I'm trying to even figure out what I'm playing, without a sense of like necessarily like, oh, and how's this going to go over to the audience? I mean, I can't do the audience, but you know, it's. I think you have a lot of kind of music in this society is very much. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. I'm just describing it. Is that it's a very much a formulated expression that, you know, maybe has been developed from focus groups or market research or other things designed to, you know, to elicit a particular experience or reaction or something from an audience which is defined in terms of probably market research ultimately. And that a lot of performance practice will then be about trying to work within those frameworks. And this, I'm not saying that that kind of thing is totally absent from this, but I'm sensing that it's a lot less of a factor than maybe just, I mean, from my own blunt perspective of like, okay, what am I gonna play now? You know, which is almost like if you were trying to like think of a computer operating system, like, I don't know, if you have like a Windows or a Mac computer, it's got this cheerful smiley face sort of like graphic design. Vast amounts of the computer's memory and everything is occupied with completely refreshing that thing. It's not really doing a whole lot of stuff. You know, and if you could, I mean, you could get more stuff happening on the computer if you didn't have to like feed that interface. And I think that there was a thought here somewhere. No, I think that if I mean, still I was suggesting that this question of what am I going to play now, is almost like, you could almost picture that as like a continual, continual like signal or a continual question cycle that's part of this thing. It's continually happening. Sort of, well, where do I play now? I mean, I'm not trying to, this is not a negative thing, but it's a continual reappraisal kind of, you know, fast change kind of thing going on, which maybe isn't quite as present if you go out to see a show at Rosemont Horizon or something like that. They're probably not asking that more than like once per evening when they go out. We do it on, you know.
No, I absolutely. I mean, I think that's kind of what I'm trying to get at here. Is there's something being communicated. I even like that word, but that is, we're going to do this thing, and it's going to somehow be interesting to this audience who's totally engrossed in what's going on. But it's not trying to tap. It's not trying to tap an emotional core that it might be with other kinds of music, because it's not about us. Well, I don't want to say this, but I'm going to say it. It's not about these surface emotions. It's about a deeper spiritual thing. And now separating those out is probably problematic.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not even sure how to deal with the surface emotion versus deeper stuff. You know, I don't know.
We don't know each other very well, but I completely agree with what you said.
Yeah, I do too.
But also, perhaps what I can add is that this circle you are talking about, like what I am going to do, what I am going It's like a feedback, okay?
Yeah.
And I have the feeling that when I play, that perhaps more when I play in solo than when I play in group, but
Oh, yeah.
I don't know. When I improvise, perhaps if I have a goal, it's to go out of this feedback by I put myself in a situation, usually very difficult situation, where there's only one solution. Like, so I can't ask myself what will I do, but I have to do that because otherwise it will collapse. So, like, it's very physical sometimes with the saxophone or with the organ. I do a sound that is like nearly not possible to do or something like this. And when it's coming, so I have not many solutions. I have only, it's like a car you are driving and you are driving very, very fast, and there's a curve, there's only one line. It's a little bit the same.
Is that you're talking about like a physical limitation or like a self-imposed decision structure?
It's many things. It's also it's at the same time physical and very psychological, in fact, because it can be a sound that I don't know, for example. So it's perhaps I don't know it, but everybody knows it. I don't know. So I don't know it, so I am discovering it, and it's something I don't know, so I can't play with it. I have only one access to it, and often when I play, I feel that the music is a kind of research of that, or that state. It's a state and a point, I don't know, a site.
Yeah, sometimes I'll impose a limitation. I'll be like, I'm going to make this sound that I'm making over and over again. I stole that from Roscoe Mitchell. It's like, I'm going to take this sound, I'm going to do it 35 times. And it kind of forces you to then be like, oh, what is this sound? What do I do with it? Because after 20 times, you're pretty bored of it. I have I want to take this maybe a different direction. So I really enjoyed what you're saying about like this limit. I think we almost never talk about that. We almost never, in this music, in fact, we're often talking about freedom, and we're talking about communication, and we're talking about creativity. So, sorry, this is going to be a ridiculous question, but what is the role in this music of a dictator? What is the role in this music of somebody who then tells you something? Can you guys talk about an experience with this, or talk about how you deal with it? Is there something we can learn in dealing with that situation as improvisers that we could teach the world?
I really think that we don't have to be polite, because I have the feeling that when someone proposes something very strong, like very, how can I say,
Authoritarian.
Yeah, authoritarian. At last you have to deal with something, you know?
Yeah.
And so it's very connected to what we just said. You have something to struggle against, or to go with, or to, and then it can be a solution. It can be, I don't say it has to be this solution, but it's one of the solutions. But definitely I really think that if improvisation is connected to like a micro society or something like this, that is building in front of people, this society is not at all perfect. It's with all the human default. It has to be with all the human default and all the bad sides, and so dictator is one of them.
Yeah, I wonder if what you're saying is you were a leader or you were a dictator, because those are different things, right? So taking the leadership role and saying we're going to do this is one thing, but I think being a dictator is another thing, where you're not only saying it, but you're saying we have to do this. You're not suggesting, and then you're boxing people in. Does anyone relate to that?
I'm curious, how did, my hearing's probably not so good, so I'm probably misunderstood the point at which somebody said that they were a dictator. Did you introduce this, or did you?
Oh, yeah, it was me, sorry.
Okay, so I'm trying to figure out how that meme got in here.
Yeah.
You know, I'm confused.
Yeah.
Okay. So I don't know. Jean-Luc, were you saying you were a dictator?
I said in my musical life, I know that I have been a dictator sometimes, if I well understand what you mean, in concerts, and it's not necessarily the bad concerts that I did. Sometimes it was good. That's all. But then what does that mean exactly? We can talk like a long time to define precisely what's the difference between being a leader, as you say. But I think when you are today it didn't happen, for example, but when we build something and suddenly one of the musicians is proposing something completely different. Very often in like improvisation workshop, it's supposed to be a bad thing to do, but I think it's really wrong. It can be a very good thing to do, to impose the other an idea that is completely out of the, you say out of the blue, no? Or something.
Yeah, I mean,
But it's interesting. Sorry, there was a debate here 3 years ago after another Bridge and Sound, and one of the musicians answered such a question. I'm not even sure he answered or he had the idea himself. But anyway, he said, in total improvisation with free form, at one moment it's a monarchy. Yeah. Next thing you know, it's anarchy. Yeah. Next thing you know, it's pure total anarchy or organized anarchy. Then a minute after, it's dictature. And that's what's great about all music, he said. It's like it's moving from one system to the other. And we don't think that one is the only one where we should live in. So I guess, just to say, because to act as a mirror.
Yeah, absolutely. I really appreciate people when they assert themselves. And the more I play with, there's an age thing to it too, and I don't want to, box people in, but there's certain amount of experience that brings it, and it's really. Last year I played with Tom Rainey, right, drummer, and he just was playing, and all of a sudden, wah! Right, and then like, whoa, you have to do something, right? And it was so wonderful. It was so wonderful to have that. He wasn't being a dictator though; he was being, I would say. Perhaps we can open up some questions out from you all.
I would like to direct this to the musicians. I know two Chicago musicians. Have you all played together, Jason and Jim? I thought so. Yeah. And Antoine and Jean-Luc, you played together in France?
Yeah.
How did you all feel about bringing this together? Two guys who played together, two guys who played together. Now 4 are coming together with the two of your backgrounds and your background. What are the dynamics? And I think we saw this on stage, but I wasn't sure if you guys had got together to even talk about this. And if not, what actually occurred between the time it was to go and the first note was played? That's what I thought. Okay.
We had
I think there was a question about playing a long piece or short pieces.
Yeah, that was one of the talks. We had a short rehearsal also today before. But for example, we decided when we set up here to separate ourselves in the space. You have Jean-Luc nearby Jim and Jason between the two of us to also force maybe a little bit because also I noticed during the concert that my ear is very much attracted to Jean-Luc's playing, also because he plays the same instrument, of course, but also because I know him well and we've played together. So that's also bringing perspective in our relationship, and that made me hear things differently that he probably had already played, and I heard him many times, and so. But that puts things in a different perspective, I would say. I don't know if I really answered your question.
I guess I'd like to follow up that question by first making a comment. So in the first half of this panel, we had one kind of stream of discussion, which was saying that free improvisation is about being here and now in a kind of a present and having a presence, and also being about both being in a kind of a feedback loop or kind of an endless refresh state, but also trying to evade that and kind of break out of that constraint. So in that model, this performance is about both a kind of a reaction to any kind of initial circumstance. You know, as Sam was saying, okay, well, someone has to be a dictator or a leader and do something to kind of get it going, you know? And after that, it's just kind of a chaotic thing where, you know, maybe the chaos will synchronize at some points, like maybe someone will kind of latch on to something else, and without a conscious or intentional decision will kind of end up being in a kind of a synchronous state, or maybe even a harmonic state. I heard this with the two saxophones. But I think, as Wanta's question implies, there's also a not here and a not now-ness to playing. In other words, as you just said, you know how other people act, or if you've played with another musician for a long time, you can anticipate how they might react, right? And that might influence how you react. So I just think it's interesting there's a kind of a tension between saying that free improvisation is about being in the kind of here and now and kind of exploring some kind of maybe not spiritual, or maybe some kind of poetic state of mind, or state of creativity. But there's also the fact that people do this for a very, very long time and do it with each other for a very long time and develop these kinds of relationships. So I wonder if you have thoughts about how you think about your own creativity versus how you, if you do a solo set, for example, versus playing in an ensemble with people you might not know very well. And you said this interesting comment, oh, this is the first time, so we were maybe too nice to each other. I wonder from the musicians if you have thoughts about marrying the idea that you can have this kind of creative, spontaneous action, but also the fact that you are playing with other people who are also doing it, who have histories and have certain instruments and certain bodies.
I suppose I have to talk. Well, one answer is that the fact that I've played with Jim before and I haven't played with these guys before is sort of irrelevant, because if I had some idea that Jim was going to do a certain thing, if I did a certain thing, I probably wouldn't play with Jim anymore. It's like what, and there's people that it's like I'm not. And also, it's not like these guys are just picked off the street someplace. It's like there's certain, it's not a complete unknown who we all are. There's a certain, a certain, I don't know, similarity that we come from a certain understanding that they're not in a different genre of music or something.
Now, just yeah, that's all.
When I said that, I didn't mean that like tabula rasa or something like this. It's nearly the opposite, actually. For example, the relation we all have with our instrument is definitely connected to the history of this instrument, but even more with the history of this instrument, with our history. Everybody differently. And this you can't avoid, and more than that, you have to go very deep into this gap between the two histories, or to be able to be perhaps right in the situation or something like this. Yeah.
You mentioned that you wouldn't be interested in playing with him that much if he did something and he expected you to do something. But my question is, because you've played together, and now that you've played all four together, while someone is doing something, does that evoke something from you? I mean, do you feed off of what the other person's doing, and it enhances and makes what you're going to do next logical, or do you feed off each other as you're doing it?
Well, from my perspective, first of all, I'm deeply hurt that Jason suggested he could imagine any scenarios where he would not want to play with me. This is really undiscussing thought. But more seriously, yeah, the evoke thing is totally, yeah, that's. I would say I would be looking for scenarios where the notion of evocation tends to take on sort of an internal feedback or exponentiated kind of character, where you get a lot of that stuff going on all the time, and it just sort of spirals out of control. I don't know.
So, I've got a quick question about just basically how difficult it is to talk about music, and I just want to hear what you all think about it. And I'll give you my really brief perspective. Is that the problem is not that music is super mysterious, but simply that music is not language. And so you're trying to put into words something that doesn't really have a lot to do with words. And so I'm wondering how you talk about music.
Here's your answer.
Yeah.
You're right. I agree with you. Totally right.
But since, just to answer Travis, at the same time, one has to wonder why, because I totally agree with you, but it's true here at the University of Chicago, it's true in many universities in the States, or in Europe now. And it's not just universities, it can be social activists, it can be many kind of people who are using language and are asking themselves questions about improvisation, free form, or to maybe adapt that to what they do, even if we are very careful with models, because once you turn something into a model, that's the beginning of many issues, new issues, of course. So that's why it's very difficult. We don't want to find or to write or to design a theory that would explain everything, like if it was possible. We don't want that. But at the same time, it's one's always talk about the history of so-called jazz or other music like that until the 60s, 70s, and then, for instance, and you know that in the south side of Chicago, for instance, the decrease of jazz clubs, jazz venues, support for this music. But one could also consider the other aspect of things. In the last 20, 30, 40 years, I'm not saying it's the same, but a lot of new people have interest in this music. And sometimes it's not easy. What I say myself, a lot of times it's like, you just woke up from a dream and we're asking you right away, tell us your dream. It's like, that doesn't work like that, it's not possible. Maybe one day we have to ask Dan, what we should do is that we let the concert is over and then we all meet again together for breakfast tomorrow. Maybe we let the night, but I'm joking, but that might work better.
Well, also I could add to that is, there's
one thing I think in the Chicago community of musicians that we sort of congregate amongst ourselves is there's somewhat an explicit rejection of this kind of talking and formulation, and in other communities, I mean, almost as a reaction to some other things that, there's the John Zorn Orcana book where all these people write the essays and so on, and I feel like as a really explicit rejection of that is our community is, I mean, I've never had any of these talks at all with any, I mean, I've been playing here 20 years in this community, and I've never had a philosophical discussion about with a band leader or in a rehearsal. I've never had that in 20 years. I've never one time have had that kind of like, I want it like this and that, and I don't think you can name any Chicago musician, I mean, all the Chicago musicians that have those sort of like, let's say the template of harmonic thing, or like some sort of little system that they have, they've all left. Because what are you going to do with that here? Nothing, right? Who cares? No one cares. Like, what does it sound like? I don't care. I don't care what your little theory is behind it, So that's as you can see, I'm uncomfortable talking, just generally speaking, but let's say in this context about how my music works or how this happened or that happened, it's like, this is just not who we are.
I was part of the discussion 3 years ago when we were trying to find the ideal format for this, and one proposal that was put forth that wasn't followed, but somebody said, why don't we have them talk before they play? And I'm, we didn't go for that way, but I'm just wondering what, I mean, you're not waking up from a dream then, you're talking, but would talking about it before you play be better? Would that be worse? Just wondering. Anyone else? All right, well, thank you very much for being here and for playing for us and sharing your thoughts. And thank you, Sam.